You know, when we talk about regulating artificial intelligence, it can all feel a little abstract, right? Like some problem for the future. But what happens when an AI goes wrong? I mean, really wrong, right now and affects millions of people? Well, California didn't just ask that question, they lived through the answer. So let's dive into the story of how a massive AI failure led to one of the most comprehensive AI rulebooks anywhere in the world.
First things first, I want you to just take a look at this number. 1.4 million. It's a huge figure, kind of hard to even wrap your head around. So what do you think it is? The number of new AI startups? Lines of code in a new model? The reality? Well, it's a whole lot more serious than that.
That's right. During the absolute height of the COVID-19 pandemic, 1.4 million people in California had their legitimate unemployment claims frozen solid. We're talking about real people waiting for money they desperately needed to survive, and they were cut off. Not by a person, but by a faulty automated system. This isn't some far-off risk. This is the very real, very human cost of getting AI wrong.
So this crisis, it was basically the spark that lit the whole fire. See, in an effort to fight a big surge in fraudulent claims, California's Employment Development Department rolled out this automated system. The goal was totally noble: protect taxpayer money. But the execution, that's where things went sideways. The AI, in its hunt for fraud, ended up blocking millions of dollars from the very people it was supposed to be helping. And that really brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? It's easy to picture some kind of malicious, evil algorithm, but the truth is usually a lot more subtle and, honestly, in some ways, a lot more dangerous. How did a system designed with good intentions end up causing such widespread harm? The answer, it turns out, was hiding deep inside the data. The problem wasn't a bug in the code, not in the way we usually think about it. The real problem was bias, and not necessarily the intentional, human kind of prejudice, but a hidden, unintentional bias that was built right into the system's logic. And it all came down to something called proxy variables.
So what in the world is a proxy variable? Okay, think of it like a stand-in or a substitute. The AI isn't programmed to look at something like race or income, because that would be illegal. But it might look at something that seems neutral, like a zip code. And if that zip code happens to correlate really strongly with a certain demographic or a certain income level, well, the AI can learn to make biased decisions without ever being explicitly told to. It's bias, just by another name.
And this difference is absolutely crucial. The system didn't fail because of some malicious goal to harm people. It failed because a process that looked neutral on the surface produced a deeply harmful result. And that creates a massive headache for regulators. How on earth do you regulate a discriminatory outcome when the intent wasn't explicitly discriminatory to begin with?
California's answer was to totally shift the focus. Instead of getting bogged down in intent, they decided to focus on impact, accountability, and transparency. In the aftermath of that unemployment crisis, the state didn't just patch up the broken system. Nope, they built a whole new framework from the ground up to prevent this from ever happening again. Let's take a look at what that new framework actually involves.
And believe me, this isn't just one little rule, it's a comprehensive framework. We're talking about a whole suite of new laws, all working together. You've got laws for AI in healthcare, in employment decisions, for data privacy, and right at the heart of it all, there's a new law called AB 1405 that created an entirely new profession.
And this right here is the real game changer. California realized you can't just cross your fingers and hope companies regulate themselves. You need independent, qualified, and state-enrolled watchdogs, these AI auditors, whose whole job is to kick the tires on these incredibly complex systems.
And these aren't just vague suggestions, Their duties are spelled out right there in the law. It's a mandate. They have to enroll with the state. Their number one job is to hunt for bias and risk. They have to keep every scrap of documentation for at least a decade. And, this part is critical, they're bound by super strict conflict of interest rules, like a 12-month cooling off period before they could even think about taking a job at a company they just audited.
Okay, so we've got our who, the AI auditor. But what about the how? How does an auditor actually keep an AI system accountable, day in and day out? Well, California's framework provides a very specific toolkit for exactly that.
It all works together in a continuous loop. First, you've got the audit logs. Think of these as the digital breadcrumbs, a trail that tracks every single decision the AI makes. Now, when the auditor finds a problem in those logs, they create a remediation report, which is basically a formal fix-it plan. And then, crucially, that plan gets translated into an executive briefing, so leadership can't just shrug and say they didn't know. They are officially informed, and they are officially responsible. And that's the real genius here. These aren't just three separate documents that get filed away in a cabinet. They form an integrated, continuous system. The logs let you detect problems, the reports make sure they get corrected, and the briefings guarantee that management has skin in the game. It creates this powerful cycle of proactive risk management.
So when you kind of zoom out and look at the whole picture from the painful lesson of that unemployment crisis all the way to the creation of this detailed interlocking system of laws and roles and tools, you start to realize that California has done something pretty remarkable here.
They've moved way beyond just talking about ethical principles and have actually written them into law and into practice. The goal here isn't to stop innovation or slow things down. The real goal is to build a solid foundation of transparency and accountability so that we, the public, can actually begin to trust these incredibly powerful systems that are becoming a bigger and bigger part of our daily lives. Which leaves us with one final really big question. California has always been a kind of bellwether for the rest of the country, and sometimes even the world, especially when it comes to tech and regulation. So by creating such a detailed, rigorous, and professional playbook for watching over AI, have they just written the blueprint that everyone else is about to follow? I guess only time will tell.